Hello friends, followers and fellow flight simmers. Welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator. This one I guess is the one I struggled the most. I have been trying to record the 737 video almost for the last 8 days now, which I started to have problems with my hardware, my Windows and then simulator. Ended up reinstalling everything, a fresh install of Windows and the sim to isolate and solve the problems rather than trying to find them or troubleshoot them. Anyway, I know I am a little bit late to the party, but this will be a full flight tutorial with the Boeing 737-700 from PMDG, which was released roughly 10 days ago. We are currently parked at Dublin International Airport, and we will be using the same route that we used in the 146 tutorial, and our destination is going to be Manchester. Different from what we did last time, I will try to simulate a flight including ATC, and we are using offline ATC provided by Pilot to ATC today, not the Microsoft Flight Simulator ATC. Just wanted to share and show you guys how Pilot to ATC performs in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Maybe you will like it, maybe you will not. It's not 100% realistic, but it is better than the default ATC. Also, we will not select any SIDs or stars, and we will wait for ATC to assign our SID and star when we request our clearance and when we request our arrival. Alright. I'm not gonna go through the exterior model and the details and textures of the aircraft this time. We will straight jump into the cockpit and start programming the aircraft. This will be a comprehensive tutorial, so expect this to be a little bit longer than the usual tutorials I have, but I will try to follow the flow of a real life 737 as much as I possibly can. One disclaimer here is the checklist I'm using is something I found online, so it might not align with the true real-life procedures that you have experienced, and each airline has their own. So therefore, take that with a pinch of salt and don't maybe think that things are wrong. Some flows might be different in order from airline to airline. Anyway, without further ado, let's jump into the cockpit of this beautiful 737 by PMDG, which in my opinion is the most beautiful aircraft or most advanced aircraft add-on for Microsoft Flight Simulator to date. And let's get things started. Alright, welcome to the beautiful 3D cockpit of PMDG 737-700. I think it speaks for itself, I don't have to say anything. The textures are clear and crisp, and the entire cockpit looks like the real thing. So what we will do is we will go through the pre-flight checks, power on the aircraft, and then we will also simulate real-time loading and refueling of the aircraft as well. So I might cut the video just to save you time and then bring back when everything is done, but I'll try to show how all those are done as well. Also, it's worth mentioning that I am using a different cold and dark setup that I found on flightsim.to. This is called Better Cold and Dark, and it changes the positions of some of the switches. I think the PMDG team tried to make it a little bit easier to start up the aircraft for flight simmers or newcomers, and they just left some of the switches in the on position, and this cold and dark setup that I found changes that to better align with a real life cold and dark of a Boeing 737. So if your switches are in a different position than mine, that is most likely why. Anyway, let's go through the checks and provide power to the aircraft. First thing we do is we need to check flaps are retracted, speed brakes are in, wipers are in the park position, fuel pumps and generators offline. Fuel pumps are off. Hydraulic pumps are off. And window heat, probe heat, they are all off. And this is pretty much what we need to do before turning the batteries on. And also the selector, the volt selector, maybe this is a better wheel, let me switch here. This needs to be on battery, and then this needs to be on ground power, because we will eventually request ground power after turning the batteries on. Alright, batteries are on. Various aircraft systems that use DC power are becoming online. We also turn the standby power to auto. This switch is usually closed in the PMDG, cold and dark. This is the difference, one of the differences. So we'll put that on, and while we are here, we'll arm the emergency exit lights. Also, the position lights needs to go to steady to let the ground crew know that the aircraft now has power. At this point, you can turn the wheel well light on to make it easier for the pilot doing the exterior walk to see the wheel well, but we are not going to worry about that in this tutorial. Alright, before we start doing anything else, we'll go to the ground services and request a GPU card first so that we don't drain the batteries as much. And we also need to load our aircraft according to our operational flight plan. So let's take a look at that, and let's start with the fuel. And I'll explain. You can do this in two ways. First way, which I will not do, is to enter your fuel into the total kilograms box and enter your zero fuel weight into the payload box, and then the aircraft will sort everything out for you, like how many passengers, how much cargo, and then the fuel obviously is coming from your flight plan. If you use the ground services, then you are going to get real-time fueling, real-time passenger boarding and cargo loading for the aircraft. And we are going to do that today. Our target fuel or block fuel for today's flight, according to SimBrief, is 4.42. 442 and then 4421. We'll actually do this. We will round this up to 4500 and enter it into the box. And our target of passenger count for today, according to our flight plan, is 118 passengers. And by the way, if you see anything with a box in the FMC, for Boeing, it means it's waiting information from you, or it's waiting an input. So 118 for the passenger count. And the last thing is the cargo. It's showing 0, Ryanair flight. It doesn't surprise me, so we will target 0 for the cargo. Okay, so let's request the fuel truck first, because we cannot start boarding the passengers before the fueling is done, and we need to get this out of the way. We don't need any baggage carts because, well, we don't have any cargo, and we will assume that the passengers are only carrying their carry-on luggages with them, like backpacks or whatnot. While waiting on the fuel truck, we can go and switch to ground power, because we are draining the battery and battery discharge is displayed. And this will also provide power to the aircraft systems that are using AC power. Next up is to go to the overhead panel and turn the IRS switches to nav to start aligning our IRS system. We'll turn IRS to align and nav, align and short wait and then nav. Put this to test, it's working, and then we'll put to the heading status position, which will then display how long it is gonna take to align our IRS system. Alright, that is now done. And we will go down, check if the fuel truck is here. Well, we'll clear the master caution here. We might get more warnings as we keep doing this. And let's take a look at the fuel truck first, and then we will continue on. So fuel truck is here, we can start the fueling, and when it's done we can start boarding. Alright, let's take a look at the overhead and make sure we don't have anything else that we need to do. We have various tests that we can do at the upper overhead panel. Flight recorder test is working. Airspeed warning test. Stall warning test. And for some reason stall warning test 2 is not functioning in the Ryanair livery, I'm not sure. And then the flaps test to make sure everything is in working condition. Now that is done, we can go down and we can test the cockpit voice recorder. Hold the switch and we'll see a white light turning on. There we go, barely visible. And we are now ready to enter our routing into our FMC and initialize our position. Let me move here first, and if we use the second one for ground services, then that will help us see when the fueling is completed. Alright, menu, FMC, model number is matching, engine rating, AREX cycle is valid, and we'll go to the position initialization. Reference airport, we are in Dublin, Echo India Delta Whiskey. Gate number, I don't think it will take it, so I will skip that, and it's not necessary, but it will display the gate's coordinates if you enter that down below right here. We'll go to the next page and grab our left GPS position and put that into these boxes to let the aircraft know its coordinates, and then it can start aligning the IRS system. From here, we'll go to the route page. You can use a simulated ACAR system if you download your flight plan and use the PMDG format. SimBrief has a software that is called SimBrief Downloader, and it has various formats for different aircraft in all of the simulators, so you can use that if you want to, but we will be entering our route manually and it's a short one, so it shouldn't be any problem. Echo India Delta Whiskey is our departure or origin. Echo Golf Charlie Charlie is our destination. Our flight number today is Ryanair 565, so Romeo Yankee Romeo 565. And we will be departing, or we are expecting runway 28 left, but we can listen to ATIS and see and hear it for ourselves. Let's clean up the master caution. ATIS frequency for Dublin is 124.52. So we will tune that. Decimal 52. I will also tune the clearance delivery frequency, which is 122.97 for standby.
Dublin International Information Oscar 10 Zulu winds are 242 at 7 knots. Visibility 6 miles. 1000 few clouds. Temperature 9, dew point 7. Current QNH is 1012. Arriving and departing runway 28 left.
Runway 28 left is in use, so we can expect runway 28 left. And this ATIS information is provided by Pilot to ATC, so if you are curious. So we will put 28 left. That's the runway we are expecting because that's the one in use, according to the weather conditions, and we will go to the next page. We are not going to enter our departure arrival before we talk to the clearance delivery, but first waypoint we have in our flight plan is Liffey, after our SID, Lima India Foxtrot Yankee, and that's the Northern Hemisphere one at the top. And our next waypoint is through an airway, Lima 975, if you remember the 146 tutorial, that's the exact airway, and this will take us to Malud. That is the only waypoint we have, and then our departure arrival starts from here. We can now activate this, but do not execute yet. And we will talk to the ATC, but let me check if the fueling is done. So the fueling is done. We can release the fuel truck and return and open our door. And we can start boarding the passengers. So that's there. Start boarding. We'll go to the overhead, turn the seatbelt signs to on, because we have now passengers boarding the aircraft, and while we are here, we'll turn the window heat on because it takes time for the windows to warm up. That is now done. We can also turn the electrical hydraulic pumps. This is done to make sure hydraulic system is pressurized when the pilot doing the walk around can spot any leakage. So let me get out of the ground frequency. We need some silence here. We will get back to that here in a second. So that is now done, that is done, and we'll turn on the yaw damper while we are here. And that is pretty much it. Navigation system is in its normal position and the source is on auto, that's fine. Crossfeed valve is closed, fuel pumps are off, lights are off except the position lights. Okay. Clean the master caution, and I think now we can contact clearance delivery and request our clearance to learn which seat we will be using for our departure. So that's the clearance delivery frequency, and we will contact and request our clearance. But also one thing you need to do is parking brake to on and do the fire test before boarding, so that you know all your fire systems are working. That is working. And if we go and do the bottle test for the extinguishers, we should see 3 green lights, which we do, and 3 green lights here. Let's finish these tests and then we will request our clearance. And we will test the cargo compartment fire detection system, which is also working. And last thing we need to do is check our lights to make sure they are all in working condition, which they are. Quick scan of the overhead too. Yep, all the lights are working, and that test is now complete. Okay, let's clear this and contact ground or clearance delivery to request our clearance. Ryanair 565 radio check.
Ryanair 565, you are loud and clear.
Ryanair 565, ready to copy IFR.
Ryanair 565 is cleared to Echo Golf Charlie Charlie. Fly the KISH-2B departure with the Liffey transition, then is filed. Expect departure runway 28 left. Climb to flight level 100 via the departure. Expect higher clearances 6 minutes after departure. Approach on 133.27. Squawk 3236.
Alright, this is our clearance information. Let's read it back and then we will break it down.
Ryanair 565 is cleared to Echo Golf Charlie Charlie, fly the KISH-2B departure with the Liffey transition, then as filed climb to flight level 100 via the departure. Expect higher clearances 6 minutes after departure. Approach on 133.27. Squawk 3236.
Ryanair 565, read back correct. QNH is 1012, contact ground on 121.8 when ready for pushback. Enjoy.
QNH is 1012, ground on 121.8. Ryanair 565.
Okay, 121.8 is the ground through frequency. Let's tune that and we will break down the clearance information that we are given. And also, let's read this through. We are told to fly the KISH-2 Bravo departure, which I selected when listening to the clearance delivery instructions. And that is our departure We'll go back to the route page. We still do not execute this yet. So that's the first information we received. The second was the client flight level 100, which is the default setting in the MCP 10,000. It's there. The third piece of information we are given is the approach frequency 133.2. I don't know if we will need it, and then the squawk code, which is 3236, which I already put into our transponder. And the information we received after the readback was the QNH 1012, and then the ground frequency, which is 121.8. So that's all done. We will tune out of the frequency for a little bit to get some silence, and we have our clearance. So next thing we can do is to check our flight plan routing to make sure there are no discontinuities, and we'll put the display to the plan mode, maybe zoom out a little bit, and the blue dashed line is our routing without executed, so this is temporary, and when you execute this becomes a solid line. So let's step through this, and then we will execute if there are no discontinuities or problems with our routing. This is also done to brief the departure before executing, so that the pilot and co-pilot are in an agreement of their departure briefing and what they are going to do. But looks like we are good until Malut, and our arrival starts there, so we will receive our arrival when we get closer. That is now all done, which means we can execute our routing. The passengers are almost there. They almost finished boarding, so this is a good time to start the APU and provide some fresh air to the cabin. Turn the aft fuel pump to feed the APU with fuel. That's where APU is drawing its fuel. And also this now goes to APU generator, and we will start the APU. It will take some time. Let's wait for it. What is it? We are still on a frequency. Let's change this, and we will come back to this later. Alright, APU is spooling up, and shortly it will become online. And just waiting for the APU to come online, and we will get everything powered on with the APU and disconnect the ground power, because we don't need it at this point after the APU is running. Almost there, coming down to 4, and then it should light up over here, APU generator off bus, which means APU is available. We'll put the APU on bus. Let's go here for a better view. Turn the packs to auto. Isolation valve is open. And we'll turn on the APU bleed. Cabin is getting hotter towards 30 degrees Celsius, so it should help with the cabin pressure. Alright, let's try to silence the microphone if we can, because I don't want you guys to listen to that conversation while we are trying to set things up. Let's get some integral lighting to the pedestal and to the overhead. Now the APU is running, the passengers are getting some fresh air. We can clear the master caution. We are ready to disconnect the ground power. So let's first do that and go to ground power and release the ground power. So we are boarded, parking brake is on. We can remove the chocks too, because we are almost done with our setup, and we will get our performance numbers in place next thing, and we will be on our way. So just a quick check to make sure I haven't missed anything here. We can go back to the map mode here. QNH is set. We'll turn on the flight directors. We will enter the rest of the information after we have our performance figures. What we can do before we start doing that is program our pressurization system for our flight altitude of 23,000 feet. That's our cruise level for today's flight. So we will tune this to 23,000. And we need the landing elevation for Manchester. Let me check the chart and see if I can spot the airport elevation here. So airport elevation is, where is it? 257. So we will tune 250 for our landing elevation, and it should be fine now. Okay, so that part is done, and we can finish up the FMC and come back for a final check before we push back. We go to the route page. That is done. Routing is entered. Now we need to enter our gross weight and zero fuel weight. Zero fuel weight can be obtained from this left line select key. While when you finish your loading or your boarding and loading the cargo and fuel, this should populate automatically. So put it in there. It will figure out the gross weight and the CG. Cruising altitude is 223,000 feet. Our reserve fuel is 2.17. Our cost index is 40 for today's flight. And the cruise wind, we will take the top of climb wind. And top of climb wind is 221 at 43 knots. All this information is in the SimBrief flight plan. You can obtain this from your operational flight plan that you generate through SimBrief. And the transition altitude, I believe, is 6,000. Let me see if I can spot that information here on the chart. And I'm gonna pull the departure chart. Our departure is Kish 2 Bravo. And let's put the chart on. It should have the transition altitude. Alright, checking the chart for transition altitude to spot where it's located. Alright, 5,000. Transition altitude is 5,000. And we will execute this. You see that white light. If you don't execute your performance initialization, you will not be able to engage VNAV. So if you are having problems engaging VNAV, this is most likely what your problem is. Well, let's execute this so that we'll have the aircraft. Aircraft will have all the information it needs for calculating the VNAV profile. Then we'll go to the N1 limit page. We don't have a performance calculator, unfortunately. I don't have one. There are some alternatives that you can use, but I will just guesstimate this, and this is not true to real life. You should have your performance calculated, and you should enter those figures according to your performance calculation. But we are aiming for 86 to 87% N1 to derate the engines. I think 55 degrees and takeoff 1 should get us where we need. So I'm fine with this information and these numbers, and we'll go and fill out the takeoff. We will be departing with flaps 5, and we will populate our CG here, and it gives us a trim setting of 601. Let's set our trim first. Oops, what just happened there? That went like crazy. We are looking for 6. And that notch after 5 is 6, so that's almost there, and we can get a closer look if we want to by changing our view, and we are just a little bit off, I guess, but that should be fine. Next thing, we'll set our V2, which is, let's set our V speeds first. 126, we'll put it on the MCP. 126. Our departure runway heading is 278 degrees, so we will put that to our heading log. 278, and we have the doubling VOR after our takeoff that we can track outbound as a secondary measure if we lose the FMS. So the frequency for doubling VOR is 114.9er. 114.9er. That's on active, and we'll do the same thing on the co-pilot side. 114.9er. Tune that, and we have, if you remember, the Collinstown VOR here, and that will help us to find the airport if we lose our system. So that's 111.20, and we will keep this on standby for quickly switching if something bad happens. Okay, that's our radio set. Our MCP course for VOR1 will be 094. That's in case we lose our FMS or GPS systems, we can use this to navigate. And you should remember this from the radio navigation tutorial that I recorded with the 146 Professional. And we are not going to tune the course here, but as a reminder, we can also put this to 094 for the co-pilot. And that is the MCP programming done. Okay. Apparently, moving your rudders, or did I hit something? Oh yeah, the toe brakes are disengaging the park brake. Interesting. That's maybe my controller setup that has some problems. Alright, this is most part done, and we will do a final check and request our pushback here in a little bit.